great.
But here's what he did.
Rhyme it. Do you know how to rhyme it? Oh, please just rhyme it.
And he really gets into
Do
it.
you know how to rhyme it?
Of course.
We will
you don't even have to think
rocking
about
it. So let's rhyme it today. Rhyme it. We are gonna rhyme it. Just rhyme
That's
it.
where he just ran down.
Everybody,
I'm not going to remember any of it.
That's good. That's the way to go.
All over the rhymes today and rhyme it.
I mean, now he's like on his feet.
How are you guys?
Whose house?
Wow.
Rhyme it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Rams Brothers, the pod. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined by the other host of this show, Nick. And Nick, 3 preseason games underway. The 53-man roster is officially out. How are you?
Good. 3 QBs. We were right. They kept Perkins. No shock there. I'm feeling good, man. I'm good. It's a good little Tuesday that we had. The roster's out. The Rams keep sneakily becoming bigger home dogs every day as the line shifts closer to Buffalo. So, yeah, I'm feeling good.
Good. Yeah, the season's coming up quick. I feel like for everybody who's like, I can't wait for the season to start. I watched that intro.
Yeah, it's going to be here like next week.
And I'm still kind of living in last season, right? I feel like we roll those clips and we're going back to the Super Bowl season and there's a lot of carryover and some newness. So obviously a lot to cover, but it's a brand new season. It's coming up really quick. And before we know it, we're going to have Rams football officially in SoFi Stadium. And Nick, 2.5-point dogs against the Bills?
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of that outside of just everybody and their mother is like super gung-ho on the Bills this year. I mean, I'm looking at Super Bowl odds. They're number 1 at plus 600, which is insane. And also to win the AFC Championship, they're plus 300. Chiefs are plus 500.
Yeah.
I would pump the brakes. I remember last year, week 1 on Nick's picks, you talked me out of betting the Steelers against the Bills. And I loved the Steelers at like plus 300. And Sean McVay now 5-0. Opening week, like we said last time on this pod. So I'm going to love the Rams week 1 too. Everything I hear is all Green Bay. It's all Buffalo. It's all Tampa.
Kansas City too. Yep.
Yeah. No, less Kansas City, but it's no Rams. And, I love that. Honestly, I feel like that's something that as a fan and as I hope they use that in the room. It's like the analysis on the TV. It's like we still can't get on, and yet
I'm sure. I could imagine that they're using that as fuel. Before we get into anything, though, I want to make sure that we're talking about the text line because this is your opportunity to get into the show, right? If you want to be a part of the LA Football Network, you want to be featured on the latest episode of Rams Brothers, join the text line. There was a recent giveaway for a Marshall Faulk signed picture.
We haven't given that out yet, have we?
Have not given it out yet.
Marshall Faulk signed picture. It's really rad.
So make sure you text Rams Bros to 31032, and you'll be a part of this exclusive network where you'll have a chance to win a signed Marshall Faulk jersey, or a signed Marshall Faulk picture, rather. And then we'll have questions. You guys could send us questions that we'll answer live on the show. So a lot of really good stuff coming out of that. And then also our betting partner, BUSR, $1,000 match bonus. You want to throw $1,000 on the Rams? Here's another $1,000 that they're going to match that you could deposit. You could use as casino chips. You could bet on futures. You could bet on the Bills to win the Super Bowl, which is the heavy favorite. You could bet on the Rams at plus 1,600 to win, and you'll have much better odds in that scenario. But go ahead and use it up, BUSR. That's our new betting partner. Make sure you guys are going to BUSR.com and subscribing. Cool.
Yeah, legal all over the world, I guess.
You can bet wherever you want. Bet on your phone. Bet right before the game starts. Bet 3 weeks in advance. It's all there. The options are plentiful. So the 53-man roster has been officially finalized.
I like the little graphics that they drop on social media where you can just scroll through and see everybody.
Yeah, you could scroll through. You could see everybody that made the team, obviously, on social media. But quarterbacks, you talked about it first. Matthew Stafford, John Wolford, Bryce Perkins. We'll start right at the top. The day started seemingly where Matthew Stafford was throwing footballs 100 yards. Did you see the Thursday Night Football clip of Matthew Stafford being promoted? First off, he's on Little Caesars now. Matthew Stafford making his way around commercial food.
I mean, deservingly so. The guy has been in the league for so long, and now he's finally getting a cut of the advertising pie, which is great to see. You know, I love seeing the Rams. It was funny. The commercial was primarily Rams and Eagles. Did you notice that?
The Little Caesars commercial? No, I didn't.
Yeah, which is interesting because we're from Philly. So it felt like a very distinct advertisement for us. But yeah, no, I love that. And yeah, I like our QB room. I want Wolford to change his number. I'll say it every time he comes up. He does not deserve 13, and it should be retired, even though Kurt Warner disagrees with that take.
Yeah, you know what? I saw Jim Everett also disagrees with that take because I don't know if it's Gervais for the special teams group that is wearing number 11, but you know, there's no hard feelings. It's just a player wearing the jersey, and it's a good representation of the past. They obviously don't retire a ton of numbers, so I don't know which side I'm on there. I don't love the fact that Wolford wears 13, but the fact that there, I guess, is still somewhat of a controversy, right? Because historically, they've kept two quarterbacks. Backups. I mean, even when you think about it, it's been John Wolford, it's been Blake Bortles for Jared Goff. I'm trying to remember some of the others, and Bryce Perkins being the next man up in that second position. I don't know if there's going to be a battle there to see who would come in a hypothetical situation if Stafford goes down. But I think for that reason alone, there's not enough analysis, I guess, that they could take from the preseason where there was one guy over the other and it was surefire. So they kept an extra roster spot and they decided to make sure to keep three quarterbacks. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that.
No, I mean, I think I love the call. It also just kind of reaffirms how I feel about Wolford, where if you thought for sure he was the number 2 guy, you kind of have to think about it in a different lens based on the performance that you saw from Perkins, right? Because this guy can ball out. And, God forbid something happens to Stafford, I would think that they would kind of play a little bit like a 1-2 punch with those two guys. And I think that would be their best success to win. Now, to go further down the line, the biggest thing I think that has come from the 53-man roster is keeping or like having as many wide receivers as they do and having only 2 tight ends.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, is any other team doing that? I feel like that's kind of this McCutcheon kid is all I hear about these days. Lance, Last time I heard Lance this much, it was an NSYNC concert.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to Friday Night Lights when he doesn't know the name of the player and he just calls him Lance because it's Matthew Saracen's friend. But no, regardless, same thing. I mean, it's the 7th receiver on the depth chart. Les Snead came out and said it's going to potentially be a redshirt year for Lance McCutcheon, meaning that they're going to keep 5 receivers potentially active on game day. So Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, and then Ben Skoranek, and then Brandon Powell will be returning kicks and punts, most likely just punts, but that still remains to be seen. So I don't, they let Jacob Harris go. They're really interested in hybrid type players, especially towards the end of that depth chart, which is why somebody like Ben Skoranek fits in. I thought Jacob Harris had a really good chance of making the roster. Then you saw him on the field in the 4th quarter of that last preseason game, getting snaps with McCutcheon. And I guess they just wanted to get a feel for if Perkins was in the game, who does he prefer to throw to? Is there somebody that he's more certain of down the stretch that he can go to? And I guess they assumed that guy was Lance McCutcheon. I mean, every single preseason game so far this year, 5 catches for 71 yards or 5 catches for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I mean, he had, 7 or 8 targets per game. Like, he has become more reliable, and obviously his skill set's a little bit more raw. But I think the growth as an undrafted free agent from Lance McCutcheon and the progression he made so quickly is what they were looking for, right? They didn't see things like that in Jacob Harris, who was getting hurt. And even somebody like Chris Garrett, who I think played like 4 snaps last year and was on the preseason team last year, obviously, on the 53-man roster. It's another guy you had to let go. So difficult situation, but I feel like you have this blind trust in the staff at this point, right? Like if they identify that those are the best 7 receivers, I'm okay with it. Nobody knows what Tutu Atwell is yet. You kind of have to blindly trust there. And then the flip side, obviously, there's everybody's favorite player, Ben Skoranek. What does he do besides drop passes?
Well,
Nick,
I mean,
I'll let you answer that one.
You brought this up last week. It's special teams, right? And it's blocking and it's stuff that isn't flashy. But when you're kind of able to be on a team like the LA Rams, everybody's flashy, you know? It's
Right.
like how many players are in the top 10 on this team from the NFL top 10? Not that I think that's a valued measuring unit, but yeah, it's 3. Like there's a lot of people here that are going to make big time plays in big time opportunities on the biggest stage. So it's easy as a fan for somebody like Skoranek or Tutu to kind of fall to the side and not think about it. But, you know, I know Lance isn't like this like beefy guy, but maybe he can block, you know, maybe he can kind of act as like a Fox tight end.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what you're expecting of guys towards the bottom of that depth chart. You're expecting them to do things like block, to know the offense perfectly, to create running room in the run game, right? To just do things, intangibles that Rams receivers historically over the last 3 or 4 years have done really well. And that's how you earn time when you're competing with, you know, top 10 stars, right? So I think they did a good job of evaluating the receiver class. Jacob Harris is somebody, if he clears waivers, he's going to come back to the practice squad. And that's a majority of some of the big names that we saw get released. The running backs in particular.
Yeah, see, this is something I wanted to talk about. We have a podcast. We're going to talk about all of it, right? But this is the thing that outside of the Harris thing, the Jacob Harris thing of it all, the Sony PlayStation that's just sitting there. And I wonder if, you know, they're thinking about, well, is he better than some of the guys that they have? Is he an upgrade from Funk, you know?
I mean, to me, I don't necessarily think so. Sony Michel last year was a Malcolm Brown replacement, in my opinion.
Right, he came up clutch.
Sure, but that guy right now is Kyron Williams. That's another guy that we just have to blindly trust is going to be able to.
Is it though? Like that's something like. And I know how they do not particularly treat running backs with the utmost respect, with outside the other positions.
Well, nobody does in this league.
Todd Gurley. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess you're right. They're like the workhorse running back is kind of almost a thing of the past.
And the fourth guy has to be somebody that's versatile, that could play special teams, that could play and dress as the fourth running back in case he needs to be on the field. My only argument is
who is the fourth guy? Oh, wait, so it's Funk, Akers. Yeah. Did Powell make the team?
Akers, Henderson, Kyron, and then Jake Funk are the 4 running backs. Yeah, Powell made it as a receiver. Yeah. So my thought was if he could play running back, and obviously Powell's a special teams guy, he just plays on the opposite side of teams, right? Like Jake Funk's going to be a gunner. He can block. He's on the hands team. And then there's Brandon Powell who could take a punt back to the house. So obviously 2 drastically different special teams roles, but both very necessary. My only thought was if you're going to keep 3 quarterbacks, you could potentially open up another roster spot if you were able to keep Brandon Powell as a running back. And then you have another, your 7th receiver could be Jacob Harris, or you could add another offensive lineman for depth. You could add more guards or another tackle, right? So that was my only thought process was because it's seemingly everybody's least favorite player. Everybody wants to replace Sony Michel, Malcolm Brown, whoever's a free agent, Marlon Mack. Let's bring him in and he could be the 4th guy. But none of those guys are going to come in and play special teams and do the dirty work that Jake Funk does, which is why he's there. And plus he's extremely affordable. He's a late round pick. Guys like him, Ben Skoranek, they don't cost anything against the cap. So it's good to just have them there as fillers. And, Jake Funk's somebody that can dress during game day. If he needs to take a couple of carries down the stretch, he could do so. It's just kind of like a last ditch effort if he's on the field at that point.
I mean, I'm just going to have Sony Michel bias for a long time as one of the key players in the Super Bowl that we just won.
Yeah.
Right. It's the CJ Anderson love that I had all those years ago, where it's like this guy kind of comes in and, definitely from cut of a different cloth from the regular running back that we usually see. And, it's like a bowling ball down there.
But guess when CJ was added to the team?
Right? Yeah, it was late. Yeah,
it was late. It's in early December. Like these guys, I don't think like you think Malcolm Brown and Sony Michel and Marlon Mack, those guys are all going to get signed before the season by a contender. No, that a lot of these teams,
Sony, I could see making it on like a Carolina.
I feel like Tampa Bay, somebody like Sony Michel has 2 Super Bowl rings, has familiarity with Tom Brady, could go in and fill some.
I don't want to talk about number 1 Tom Brady.
No,
not on this podcast. Every other podcast can talk about him. Actually, you know what I have been hearing though throughout the podcasts I listen to on The Ringer and Colin Cowherd and throughout the world. And maybe this is just more spite, like for Brady, but like the faith is starting to dwindle, around the league. People are starting to kind of not have as much faith in this Buccaneers team anymore.
Dumb.
And what, you're just like, don't count them out?
No, you can't. Michael Jordan of football. You don't count.
They have the highest NFC championship odds at plus 325.
Yeah, I mean that's not done by mistake.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but that's a tribute to how good he is. But I said, if you could add Sony Michel to that offense, and he's not much of a pass catcher, and obviously Leonard Fournette is that back for them. But as a change of pace guy, somebody that is a veteran that knows Tom Brady, that would be able to pick up on a fairly simple system quickly, could be an easy fill-in piece. And he's not going to cost you anything.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Jake Funk is costing you even less than it would cost you to bring in Sony Michel. Plus, he's doing theoretically more. He's playing more snaps. But then, like to your point, Nick, Sony Michel took over last December when Akers and Henderson were both down. So something about that third running back position that's obviously highly valuable. And the guy that's in there, I just think is an unknown in Kyron Williams, which is why there's only a little bit of uncertainty there. But as soon as we see him play, and if we understand that he's capable, that's all. That whole theory's out the window. But I'd like, for example, like if you went with 2 quarterbacks, if you went with 3 running backs, if you went with 6 receivers, there was an opportunity to add another tight end. Tyler Higbee and Bryson Hopkins are the only 2 guys. Kendall Blanton was on the roster, and then he went to the Commanders, and then he was waived by the Commanders. If he clears waivers, maybe we bring him back and sign him back to the practice squad. But I know you like your tight ends, Nick. I know you do. Tyler Higbee and Bryson Hopkins are your 2 guys. Do you think Hopkins could eventually overtake Tyler Higbee in this offense?
I just worry about Higbee's wheels is all.
Yeah.
And it makes me think that the depth, like the practice squad guy on the Rams, that's a tight end, may have to get reps, during an actual game. And this is a long shot, like about as long of a shot as you're going to get. But I love my tight ends team. And there's one tight end that some people say has a striking resemblance to me if I was a jacked hunk. I'm calling it now. Rob Gronkowski to the LA Rams.
Well, I think it's a little bit out of bounds.
If something happens and they OBJ Rob Gronkowski week 13, the tables will fly.
Of course. Well, as a Rams fan, would be extremely excited. But Tyler Higbee and Bryson Hopkins, you got 1 tight end in 11.
Let's bring it back to reality. Nick.
No. It's just that the reality is that their offense is, 75% 11 personnel, which is just 1 tight end. If they go into 12 personnel or 21 personnel and want to switch things up and add more guys to the line of scrimmage, they could do so. But they want somebody that's essentially a carbon copy of Tyler Higbee in that role. And it seems like Bryson Hopkins has just followed the coattails of Tyler Higbee, has the same type of swagger. Now he has Super Bowl experience. And that's somebody that even if Tyler Higbee goes down, they can rely on that 1 tight end set and 11 personnel and rotate in some of those other guys in the receiver position that are flexible and can move to the line of scrimmage and make some plays right off the line of scrimmage. So there's optionality there. I think in terms of like overall depth at the tight end position, maybe you would like to have a little bit more. I'm used to seeing 3 at least, like a Tyler Higbee, a Johnny Munt, and then a Bryson Hopkins. But if they feel like they're carbon copies of one another, I'm comfortable with the situation.
Yeah. I love tight ends. I think they're sneakily like a very important, part of the offense as anybody would probably add. and I just am a huge fan of Higbee, but not having him down the stretch, not in the bowl game, just kind of it's stuff like that that's going to be able to push you over the edge. So, and that's why the game was so close. And they won. So
Yeah.
They had every piece that they needed. They had, but like they barely were able to do that. And Higbee probably saves me a couple gray hairs in that Super Bowl. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, he stepped up. He played well. And like we talked about in previous podcasts, if the kid's ready to go, he's ready to go. And that was a later round draft pick that we all hoped came to fruition. He developed a little bit later, but the time where he had to emerge and become a star and be on the field, he shined. So the best example of somebody when you just kind of throwing them into a situation to see if they could sink or swim, he figured it out. So it's just a good sign for him moving forward. And I'm hoping to see him on the field more often because he was a great target in preseason for Wolford and Perkins. Moving on to the offensive line. Some controversy, I believe. I'm not sure if the reason why is because the name Bobby Evans is in the mix, but there's some controversy with this group. And maybe it's the depth. Maybe it's just the loss of Andrew Whitworth and the loss of Austin Corbett and Logan Bruss going down to injury. Offensive line is just so important. And I feel like everybody has fresh in their memory is that season from 2018 to 2019, where there was such large drop off from losing losing Roger Saffold and losing some other players on the inside. And it makes it a little bit more difficult to build continuity year to year. I have a ton of faith in Kevin Carberry, but Joe Noteboom, David Edwards, Brian Allen, Coleman Shelton, Rob Havenstein are your guys. Are you confident in that starting five moving forward?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, legitimately, I don't think they're like a top 5 offensive line, and
not right now. Totally agree.
They're gonna have to like kind of learn, and Stafford's gonna have to kind of maybe be a little more mobile this year, just to kind of keep plays alive. But it's nothing that concerns me indefinitely yet.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me week 4 when we play San Francisco.
Sure.
And that's going to be a different story. But just like the start of the schedule, right? Like get these guys kind of accustomed to it.
Mm-hmm.
Bills, like with Von Miller, you're going to go, it's going to be pretty difficult, obviously. But then you got Falcons and Carolina,
Yeah.
So it gives them time to really kind of get together and like face some opponents that are a little lesser, so they can kind of get on a solid foot together.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I feel like Joe Noteboom was somebody that we had all eyes on throughout camp. We wanted to see how he was developing, wanted to see what Whitworth had to say about him, what Carberry had to say about him. And from what I saw from Joe Noteboom, he's going to come in and he's going to be a top tier left tackle. He's had the necessary experience. He was a later round draft pick that had time to develop behind Andrew Whitworth. And again, kid that came in, shined when he had to in multiple seasons. David Edwards, same kind of situation. Kid from Wisconsin comes in, earns a starting role, has been there ever since. Brian Allen, same exact situation. Coleman Shelton's an unknown at right guard, and Rob Havenstein has been here, one of the longest tenured Rams. It's Aaron Donald and Rob Havenstein left from St. Louis. And then Alaric Jackson, Bobby Evans, and Trayman Akram. So that's really it. I mean, Alaric Jackson and Trayman Akram, I think, did a really good job of playing multiple positions throughout the preseason, which was exactly what they needed. They wanted to see if Akram can play left tackle, if he could play right tackle, if he could play inside. Same with Alaric Jackson. They were doing the same thing with AJ Curie and Max Percher, who is the Italian paisano. That is not obviously going to be on. He's not going to be on the roster, but will still be on the practice squad, part of the international player program. And then there's Bobby Evans.
Yeah, you say that like you're disappointed.
You know what? I don't think the development has been there yet. Like, he's not going to overtake Rob Havenstein anytime soon. I don't think he has the capability to come in and
Havenstein
no
is
drop
going to
off.
have to be the replacement for Andrew.
The replacement for Whitworth is Noteboom, but I'm
right.
saying
But I mean, like, in the sense of like Whitworth was such a piece of what the secret sauce of what the Rams was for throughout the entire McVay era, right? And Havenstein kind of has that in him to be able to like be that offensive line leader. You know what I mean? Just from legacy alone.
Exactly. Rob Havenstein, his doppelganger, Trey Parker from South Park. If you ever looked that up, they look identical.
Hold up. Do you have a pick? No.
No, I don't. I don't have a pick. It's all right. We'll go back to the video producer. We'll get him to add one. Doppelgangers for sure. But again, seasoned veteran, Trey Parker, 25 seasons of South Park under his belt. Rob Havenstein, nearly 10 seasons as a Ram under his belt. He's been there for a while. Just the depth there. I mean, it's going to be next man up. If anybody goes down, Lark Jackson, I think, would fill in at right tackle. I think he would fill in at left tackle. Same with Ankrum. Like if they had Edwards go down at left guard, they're going to have to fill that in immediately. And Bobby Evans got a lot of work on the right side during the preseason, but I didn't see anything like he and Logan Bruss on the right side, Logan Bruss getting bowled over and then getting hurt, and then Bobby Evans not being able to hold his own. Like that was not encouraging to watch. I think he's there because he's one of the longer tenured players and does know the offense. But if he's on the field, you guys are going to notice immediately. That's kind of what hurts, is the fact that our depth there may not be as strong as it was year to year. And obviously it's one of the most important position groups, if not the most important position group on the field. So just got to rely on the fact that our starters are going to be our starters and they're going to ride us into the sunset.
He does look like Trey Parker.
I told you.
Look at him.
Doesn't he?
It's so similar.
I know. Yeah. There you go. You got it on the screen.
It's like a hunky Trey.
I was watching the clip that South Park had posted where they were performing the theme song live. Like, because they're obviously not the same age, but have the same kind of gray hair. And they have those big blue eyes. So it stood out to me. Yeah. Good stuff.
Interesting call out of you. I saw Trey Park at a Rams preseason game last year.
I'm sure he's a big Rams fan. If not, he's a Colorado.
No, he's a big Broncos fan. Big Broncos fan. Yeah, I'm sure he goes to a lot of Rams games.
Yeah, but LA pays the bills. Games. Yeah.
He'll definitely. I probably will be at the Chargers Broncos game in SoFi this year. I'm sure.
Yeah, I was thinking about the game on Christmas where they play the Broncos, Rams Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
Could be there as well. Get a Mr. Hanky special episode.
Yeah.
The defensive line. Moving over to the defense.
Still got Gaines. Still got Robinson. Still got Donald.
Yeah, this is what you want to see. Obviously, Marquise Copeland makes that group as well. Jonah Williams had a really good preseason, and Michael Holt. But A'Shawn Robinson, Aaron Donald's obviously his own story with the helmet swinging and everybody thinking that he's going to get suspended and the Rams disciplining him internally. Nobody knows exactly what happened. Our assumption is maybe he went to Sugarfish and treated the whole team for dinner. Nobody knows. But A'Shawn Robinson, I feel like, is the story. Just because his relationship with Eric Henderson and the way that he's developed as a player and the way that he's dancing around with the big bottle after they won the Super Bowl, like that should be everybody's favorite kind of player. Somebody that's, has a hand in the dirt and wants to get dirty, wants to make plays, and wants to, stop defenders behind the line of scrimmage and be a part of this, new, obviously not the fearsome foursome, but this new kind of defensive front where we have not only a great front, but then, Bobby Wagner behind that and Jalen Ramsey behind that, and just three levels of defense that are obnoxiously strong, the same way that A'Shawn Robinson and Aaron Donald are. So I'm excited to see his continued progression. Greg Gaines is Greg Gaines, everybody's favorite player, fastest man in the world. Marquise Copeland is great rotational depth. And then Jonah Williams and Michael Holt, same deal, right? Those are guys that are going to, work with Elijah Garcia and figure out a way to simultaneously be in the A gap and also be in the B gap. And you're working with the best player in the world and Aaron Donald to have a great coach there. So I don't think they're going to have any kind of issues stopping runs, clogging gaps. Like they're going to have to replace Sebastian Joseph Day, which I felt like they were fine in doing last year.
Yeah.
Bobby Brown is another guy who was, I think he's suspended for the first 6 games of this season for violating the performance-enhancing drug policy. He's another guy, once he comes back, he'll come into the rotation. He probably would have earned a spot if he wasn't suspended, but he has a designation on the suspension list. So, dog work, baby.
Yeah, I love our defense. I think, Gaines is just developing, amazingly. It's the clip of Robinson, while AD is hyping up the defense in the NFC Championship, that stuck with me more than anything else over the entire offseason. It's Donald freaking out at everybody, and you have Robinson there. I'm pretty sure he's got one of those like bald guy sweat things where it's like the fumes are just flying off of his head. And he's standing there looking like the most menacing human in the entire world, looking intensely at Aaron Donald. And I remember they cut to that during the game. And my thought wasn't we're going to win the NFC Championship. It was we're going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that was just freaking phenomenal. And obviously it has a lot to do with Donald giving the speech, but the intensity in, Robinson, that was just freaking awesome.
I totally agree. Once we have that clip, that'll be a great clip. My thought with A'Shaun Robinson is, for whatever reason in my head, when the logo initially came out, was in March of 2020, when the logo in the box came out.
Yep.
I think A'Shaun Robinson was signed a couple of weeks later. I saw a picture of him from Alabama sitting next to Derrick Henry. I could not believe his size, and I believe he came from the Lions, right? So the Rams have done a really good job over the past 5 years of identifying some of the top talent across the leagues against some of the worst organizations, and have been able to swap picks or been able to sign players and just get them into the system. And A'Shaun Robinson is one of the best examples of that. He works flawlessly with Eric Henderson, and will credit almost half of his progression to just being able to be well coached and to be on a defensive line that understands football. So tons of credit to him and the way that he's come about. He has quickly became one of my favorite players on the defensive line, on the entire defense as a whole. And then you watch him celebrate. He's that guy. Like, he's the locker room guy that everybody wants to hug on. Like, he's the meanest guy in that situation, Nick, when there's fumes coming off of his head. And then after the game, he's the guy that you want to celebrate with. So I think he's a nicer, cooler, better version of Ndamukong Suh. Yeah,
very, very similar. Very similar vibe. Yes. Great piecing those together.
He's the good guy, and Ndamukong Suh is his Wario, as you like to say.
Oh, see, I love that.
You're rubbing off on me, brother.
Yeah, that was really good.
Thanks.
And then the glaring omission to the defense, our triangle friend, Von Miller. Yeah.
Von, who was on some kind of game show today that I was watching, that I fell asleep watching.
Celebrity Family Feud by any chance?
Was it? Might have been Family Feud. I don't even know. I can't remember.
That's just a guess.
No, it was the one that's on before Jeopardy, I think. Or before
Wheel
Family
of Fortune?
Feud. Maybe it was a Wheel of Fortune, yeah. Starting to show my age, I guess, watching these game shows at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night. I keep in mind, came back from Italy. I'm still readjusting to the time change. But yeah, no, it's seeing somebody like Von Miller do his thing with the Buffalo Bills. Like, he looked great, obviously, on TV. And you look at our outside linebacker class, you look at Leonard Floyd and Justin Hollins and Terrell Lewis and Daniel Hardy, Keir Thomas. Does it feel like it's missing somebody like Von Miller?
Not yet.
Okay.
I think Bobby Wagner helps.
Yep.
But right now, if I look at the depth chart, I'd look at the roster.
Yeah. Floyd and Hollins.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like we're missing a huge defensive piece.
No. Yeah, I agree.
Which maybe, people may be thinking like, I mean, Von Miller was a huge part as to why we won the Super Bowl, obviously. But I truly, this also looks like a Super Bowl defense.
Yeah, I mean, you signed Von Miller back. There's no question that Odell Beckham Jr. can come back. There's no room cap-wise. Like, Von Miller would have eaten up a ton of your cap for this year. And who's to say Von Miller can work through another 21 game season? You have some young depth there. You have Leonard Floyd. Obviously, he's been great since they signed him. Everybody was against that signing because he came from Chicago, a bad team, and the Rams turned him into a Pro Bowl caliber player. Justin Hollins, on the other side, who was in rotation with Von Miller last year, was essentially playing his role, was just playing behind him. And then same with Obo, who's now in the Texans, was playing behind Flo. So there's a little bit of a question mark there. Like Terrell Lewis, we don't know exactly what he is yet. When he's on the field, he can knock Rob Gronkowski off his ass onto the ground and change the whole temperament of the game. That's the kind of player that I think they want in rotational roles. Like it's Floyd, Hollins, and then it's Terrell Lewis and Daniel Hardy, just like we said. So Terrell Lewis and Daniel Hardy, like they're going to be just speed rushes off of the end, where Leonard Floyd and Justin Hollins are a little bit more technical, a little bit more sound. So I think if you're in the right situations, you'll see these players rotate onto the field, somebody like Hardy or Terrell Lewis, either to make a big play, to try and get somebody in the backfield, or just to mix something up and just to get a speed rush versus something that hasn't been working as well. So I'm confident in that group. I am. I don't know if there's something missing yet, and we won't know until the season starts.
Yeah. I'm almost positive this defense is equal to, if not greater than, last year.
Yeah, you go to the inside linebackers, Bobby Williams and Ernest Jones.
Yeah.
That group is better than last year. Christian Roseboom and Jake Hummel are there for depth. I think Jake Hummel set the rookie, or just a preseason record. I didn't even know they kept preseason records for 21 total tackles this year. So just had to keep him on the roster just because he's a great special teams player and will serve as depth. But I mean, that's Troy Reeder. Like that's that player who was earning time. I think it was Troy Reeder who had the sack on Kyler Murray where he got spun around in the playoffs and then threw it up to David Long. Like we don't have that anymore. We have like bona fide linebackers in Bobby Wagner and Ernest Jones. I'm not sure anybody knows how exciting it actually is going to be to have Bobby Wagner on the field. Yeah. Like they're at full command of the defense. Jalen Ramsey could take a break. Aaron Donald just has to do Aaron Donald's work. He doesn't have to do everybody else's work. There's Bobby Wagner just calling things out, identifying things before the play even starts at the line of scrimmage. That's what you want in a middle linebacker, and going to be a totally underrated signing if he comes out and that Rams defense is dominant.
Yeah, I think people are not giving the defense enough credit, just in the sense that, all these Super Bowl odds and everything in front of me, we're kind of low, and I think the main reason that is because they think we're going to take a step back on the defense, and I just don't see that being the case.
No, I mean, you could make the argument too that because the schedule's tougher, it's going to be a little bit tougher on the defense. But Raheem Morris, continuity there, will eventually be a head coach. There's no doubts in the ability he has to run a defense and to bring his stars to light and allow his stars to fluctuate within his own defense. Like Jalen Ramsey was able to kind of name his own roles last year. He was blitzing Jared Goff in the beginning of the season, the game that we were at. And then he kind of scaled back a little bit and figured, okay, maybe our defense is a little bit more holistic if Jalen Ramsey isn't, going full force at the quarterback and hang back.
I also just think that they probably had a lot of work on Goff, and like they knew, they kind of know how to take him down when you just got to get pressure in his face.
Yeah.
Played a hell of a game that week, though. I loved that game.
It was a hell of a game. That Dan Campbell team's going to be a tough out, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. They did the top, what was that? I don't know if Jalen Ramsey, I think he was number 9. And Dante Dion came on and was like, yeah, man, Jalen Ramsey just came around the edge and hit my boy Jared Goff. I didn't even have to look at my guy. Like, he was good. It was fine. The ball was incomplete. Ramsey was like this at the line of scrimmage, and that was that. And that's just how good Ramsey is. So the cornerbacks, Jalen Ramsey, David Long Jr. So they're going to be starting opposite sides of one another. Brace yourselves if you don't love David Long Jr. Troy Hill potentially going to start in the nickel. Robert Rochelle will serve as depth to Jalen Ramsey. Kobe Durant, I think, will serve as depth for David Long Jr. and Troy Hill because he played inside and outside in the preseason. And same with Darion Kendrick. I think Darion Kendrick is more of a Robert Rochelle, Jalen Ramsey type build. But I have full confidence. This is my favorite cornerbacks group since like the Peters and Aqib Talib days, right, where they were kind of the villains. This seems like the evolved version of last year's class. Right, obviously, you don't have Darius Williams, but David Long stepped up in a big way. You got Troy Hill back. Robert Rochelle looks bigger and stronger than he was last year. And then the two kids, what did you nickname Kobe Durant? Something Mamba.
Oh, the Reaper Mamba?
The Reaper Mamba or something?
Grim Mamba.
Grim Mamba. I want that to stick. And then Darion Kendrick, who we love. So excited to see what that group has to offer. And then the safeties too. So continuation of defensive backs. Taylor Rapp's the first guy listed on this list. Don't know about that. Jordan Fuller and Nick Scott, I want to see. Free safety, strong safety. Those are our two guys. Taylor Rapp.
Love Rapp. They love him.
Well, Taylor Rapp's on the last year of his deal. Right. So the best thing that they could do for him is try and get him.
Henderson, right?
Yeah, Henderson's on the last year of his deal too. So is Bobby Evans. So these guys, they're coming up on contracts. It's a situation for them to outright earn a position and then potentially fight for another contract with the Rams. All these guys that we're talking about are professionals and will get a contract elsewhere outside of maybe Bobby Evans. But Nick Scott and Jordan Fuller, I felt like showed me the most from last year outside of Eric Weddle. And, then there's Terrell Burgess and then there's Russ Yeast, who I like a ton. I think with Taylor Rapp, you can rotate him in blitz packages. You could play him a little bit on the inside in terms of a linebacker if you need extra help there. I don't love him as a safety. I don't love him as a player in general. I just feel like it's going to be Scott and Fuller all the way. And then hopefully Russ Yeast can figure out his way into the rotation too, because I saw him flashing in preseason.
Yeah. Dean, do you want to talk about some good value futures that I found today?
I do, yeah, because we don't have to talk about Matt Gay, Riley Dixon, and Matthew Orzik. They're locked in. Oh, it was Orzik, the long snapper, who has Jim Everett's number 11.
Yeah, I mean, good luck in Carolina, Hecker. I'm happy to see a new punter.
Yeah.
Those two things can be said in the same sentence.
Yeah, those things could both be true. Listen, we might have some gripes with Riley Dixon when he starts punting the ball. A line drive in the third preseason game with poor coverage that they allowed to take back, and then he had to make a tackle. We'll be watching. We'll be watching you, Riley.
Yeah, we may be asking for Hecker a little early, but we'll see. Just as I eat my words. So I'm not going to touch any of the Super Bowl stuff because, okay, maybe I'm going to touch it a little bit, just a little bit. Because if I were to go completely unbiased into this year, the team I like the most outside of the Rams is Denver. You can get Denver.
Totally get it.
17 to 1 odds. Plus 1,700.
Yeah, so they're right after the Rams.
No. So it's Buffalo, Tampa, Kansas City, LA. Who's next?
Okay. Denver.
No. Green Bay, Chargers, San Francisco, then Denver.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Tons of value there.
A lot of value there. I think they're going to be like I don't love them winning that division. I don't think they have to win the division.
Mm-hmm.
But AFC Championship odds, Denver Broncos plus 850. I really, really like that. I mean, look at the pattern, right? It's all about patterns. Tom Brady joins a new team, wins the Super Bowl in the first year. Matthew Stafford joins a new team, wins the Super Bowl first year. Russell Wilson, who some may argue, maybe myself, that he is better than Matthew Stafford and is going into a situation that is equally as strong as the Rams had in terms of roster and coaching. Okay, maybe not coaching, but
not coaching.
I love Russ. I think he does an amazing job, and I'm so happy to see him separate from Pete Carroll and go to somebody that actually knows what they're doing. So I am
hack it. I don't know. Can he hack it?
I am mighty high on this Broncos team. Dean, if you had to pick a team outside of the Rams to win the Super Bowl, who would you pick?
The Buffalo Bills love is insane. Like I have to go
plus 600 to win a Super Bowl. Are you kidding me?
The time's going to come eventually where they're going to win the Super Bowl. I think if my favorite quarterback outside,
that's not true.
I think my favorite quarterback outside of watching Matthew Stafford flourish with the Rams' offense is just Josh Allen doing his thing and playing the position the way that he knows how to play it. It's like a Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers hybrid, but he's bigger and stronger. Like it's so much fun to watch him just leap defenders and make plays with his arm. I think that his time's eventually going to come, and I think it's eventually going to be his league, him and Mahomes. They would be my pick. I know they're a heavy favorite, but if you're making me pick somebody outside of the Rams who I think have as good of a chance as anybody at the top, it would have to be them.
Yeah, I legitimately think curses are real in the NFL. And I think some teams just can't break those curses. I mean, Minnesota is a team that is consistently good, has been to Super Bowls. For some reason, always finds a way to lose big games. Their kicker always fumbles. It's like crazy. And Buffalo went to 4 and lost 4. I couldn't imagine.
If you weren't around for that time,
couldn't imagine.
Go back and watch the 30 for 30 just to experience what the other side of it looks like.
So sad.
It's so
sad.
Extraordinarily disappointing to be a fan in that era. And then to not, after that, you don't go back. After you lose 4, you don't go back again. That's the scariest part.
Yeah.
Is every year you felt like you had a chance to go back and it just doesn't happen. But
so 2 other trends just real fast.
Yeah.
Bills to win the AFC East, which we're talking about them right now. It's minus 225, which means you have to put $225 to win 100. I think that is a lock, honestly. Like the Dolphins are the next team at plus 475, and the Patriots are right under them with the same odds. And the Jets at plus 22,000. Minus 225 is not that heavy to put down. Like if you have $1,000, maybe this is a good opportunity for that prize or
for BUSR.
BUSR, yeah. I feel like that's kind of free money, honestly. I'd like, barring any injuries, of course, like futures are always scary for that reason, but minus 225, I mean, come on. That is very, very yummy. And then the other thing, just out of value alone, don't kill me, Rams fans. If you just look at the value, NFC West odds, Rams plus 125, sprinkle some on that. Niners plus 175, push that in the corner. Arizona Cardinals plus 350. They were a game away.
There's no chance.
They were a game away from winning the division last year.
There's no chance.
A game.
I'm telling you, they don't win more than 8 games this year.
Everybody's off on the Cardinals, and it makes me feel better about being up on them, honestly.
They might start the season 2-6 with no DeAndre Hopkins.
I disagree.
Yeah, I don't know. Kyler Murray's been playing a lot of Call of Duty.
Yeah, same jokes I've been hearing. Kyler's got something to prove.
Not for me. I haven't made that joke.
Well, no, just from the world. It's all I've heard about Kyler is that he likes to play Call of Duty.
Listen, he's a good player.
Marcus Mariota likes to play Mario Kart Double Dash, okay?
He's falling. I think Kyler Murray's falling into the Jalen Hurts, the Lamar Jackson MVP conversation. I think he's plus 2,000 to win MVP. He was, I think, a couple of years ago, had a really good chance. He was a top 3 MVP candidate. I just don't think he's that anymore. League humbled him a little bit. Game has changed a little bit.
Also, just like out of everybody's so high on the Eagles, and the Cowboys are always going to be hot. That division is just begging for another leader. Not that I think.
I know you're going Giants. I know you're doing it.
I don't think the Commanders can do it, but I like the Giants.
I like the Commanders way more than the Giants in that division.
Plus 750 though, it's kind of worth it just to throw like $100 on it. I think
the Giants, the Bears, the Jaguars, and the Texans are the 4 worst teams in the league. I think
Bears for sure.
Texans for sure.
Nah, I like Davis Mills.
Oh God. Wait, let's go. I can't wait to go back to good football.
I know, right? It's
like I'm talking about preseason players and backups and
I was excited about a freaking Jets-Giants worst football preseason game I've ever seen in my life.
Our next episode is going to be a full Buffalo Bills preview, though. We're going to be bringing on some questions from the text line. I had this idea, Nick. I'm going to pitch it to you live. I figured we'd say we'll keep it open. We'll keep this open for everybody. We'll pick 5 of our favorite people, 5 of our favorite callers. Say DM us if you want to be on the show. We'll give them an hour time frame. They can send us our emails, and then they can, once we're on, we'll pop them on one by one. Caller number 1, caller number 2, first time, long time. Could be fun.
I would love that. I mean, get us on the radio. You know what I mean? That
cool. Let's plan to do that for the next episode. So if you guys are listening, keep an eye out for that text. I'll send it out on Twitter so that you can send us your email, potentially join the show as a guest if you're interested to talk Rams right before Rams Bills. What could be more fun with the Rams brothers? Are you kidding me?
And then one more thing, Dean. Your birthday present that I got you has finally arrived. If you would like to show the people at home, wow, look at that. Authentic.
Can everybody see it?
Rareware licensed Banjo-Kazooie figure. Amazing.
I have to say, as a kid, that was something that I used to carry around because that game obviously came out when we were 4 or 5 years old. So as I opened it up, I had that same exact feeling. So I very much appreciate the sentiment, brother. I love you dearly. Nobody's better than you.
As well. Thank you.
And
I agree.
Hey, we're going on another season.
Yeah.
Me and you again, baby.
Season 5? Season 5?
Yeah.
Nice.
Can't believe we're still on the air.
Can't believe that Dean texted me and said, yeah, quick 30-minute episode. 51 minutes later, here we are.
51 minutes later, asleep at the wheel, and we're through a podcast. Yeah, got a lot of fun stuff coming up. Thank you guys so much for listening. Next episode is going to be all Rams Bills. We're going to crack into the season. Obviously, some more stuff in between then, but this is the Rams house. This is the Rams Brothers, the pod. You guys are the best. Nick, you're the best. Thank you guys for listening.
Take care. Whose house?
Brush your hair. Peace.
Brush your hair.